Mental health is one of the biggest problems that our communities are suffering from. It doesn't matter what race, it doesn't matter what economic status you come from, or anything like that. Mental health can creep in and completely destroy your life. And it's kind of a touchy subject right now. A lot of people aren't living right now because of their mental health issues. I think recently there was a football player who committed, the S word due to mental health issues. And I was also doing business with Eric Kramer, right? A former NFL player, quarterback. And he also had a suicide attempt. So it's showing me, for one, there's a sensitivity around the sports scene, right? Because they're beating themselves up mentally and physically just to perform at certain levels, right? But then I'm noticing that this is transcribing throughout the world. These people have millions of dollars and they're still suffering, so it's starting to be obvious that money isn't what's causing this. For example, my journey in mental health issues has been, my family dynamics, has been, me trying to operate out of love and see things from a higher perspective. And as I look around, I see that that was also a trigger in people's mental health, their family, right? This particular football player, he lost his mother, I believe, last year or sometime soon. And when I heard Eric's, story, the former quarterback, it was also after, losing family members, losing, I think, both of his parents and his child, and it triggered it. We hold a very deep sensitivity to our family. And if you haven't been in a situation where your family was necessarily your backbone, or you lost your family, let's say they were your backbone and you don't have them, that could send a lot of people into the spiral, because we don't have very strong communities and support systems like our family do. There's a lot of people that we're going to run into in this life who claim to like us, claim to, do what we do, claim to understand us, all this other type of stuff. But when it truly comes down to that deep level of support and genuine care, there's not a lot of people who's going to show that for you. So when you're in those moments of, just anger or just hurt, and just sadness, etc., it's very important, for one, to bring the attention onto yourself, right? I want to start there because there's only so much that somebody outside of you can do. If you aren't willing to go deep inside and do that work yourself, it's always going to come down to you. And what do I mean by do that work? Sit in those uncomfortable thoughts. Go talk to, tell people, go vent, go journal, go ask yourself questions, go get therapists, mentors. When I say go do that inner work, I mean actually try to live. Do you understand what I'm saying? And everybody's gonna be like, oh, they are trying, they just have a lot on their plates and everything. When it comes down to survival, if you have to separate yourself from the lifestyle or from the people or just you have to separate yourself from anything so you can regain your clarity and regain your peace, that is always more important than what you're leaving behind. I don't care if you be like, oh, if I take off work for a week, I might lose my job, which means I might lose my house, which means I may be home, all this other type of stuff. And at that exact moment, you have to ask yourself a question. What's more important? Me losing house, car, all this other type of stuff, going homeless, or me not living? It's once you bring that attention onto yourself and you value yourself, you put yourself first. And that energy, let alone, will bring so much healing. Now, when it comes to the people that you're talking to, these people have girlfriends, these people have parents, they have, people that they can go to. And they're telling them these things. But no amount of counsel is going to give you an answer to a question that you haven't asked. You have to ask yourself certain questions, like, why do I feel like this? And that's why I said a therapist in particular, because there's a very big difference between somebody trying to give you advice and somebody making you explain why you are hurt. Once you start to unpack those layers, because a lot of times these problems be surface level, you feel me? They'd be like, okay, you're feeling an emotion and you tie it to the most recent thing that you've gone through. Okay, I feel anxious right now probably because this bad thing happened, this person left me, I lost this opportunity, whatever the case may be, right? When in reality, you probably don't even care about that person, that opportunity, that whatever the case may be. You're still unregulated from something that probably happened in your childhood, some type of traumatic event that you thought that you was able to just push into the back of your mind and overfill it with quote unquote positive experiences until you got to a point where you realized it wasn't possible. That hurt was always going to be there. So it takes you removing yourself from the surface level problems in your life. Surface level is, for one, your relationships sometimes. The girls, the boys and stuff that we're talking to. That can be real surface level. We shouldn't be getting sent into no mental health over relationships, because if you're getting sent into bad mental health because of a relationship, that's a very clear sign that relationship isn't for you, right? It's not. It's not, it's not, it's not. And I actually just don't want to sit here on this video and just trauma dump onto you guys and just overload you guys with information. I do want to give you guys some solutions real quick, right? On some ways that you can manage anxiety, because anxiety is one of those things that a lot of us are dealing with, and it's causing a very big, emotional burden for something so small. Anxiety is, in other words, the fear of the future, right? You're projecting your current self into a future reality that hasn't happened yet, and you trying to interpret the whole spectrum of a situation that doesn't exist yet is causing you to become overstimulated. And that's in other words what that anxiety is, when you've put yourself too far in the future. And I feel like depression, sadness, all this other type of stuff usually comes when you're looking too far back in the past. It's very hard for you to be depressed or sad about a situation that hasn't happened yet. You get what I'm saying? The moment you look forward into the future, you start realizing like, okay, there's possibilities. There's, optimistic ways that this can happen. There's things that can happen that's out of your control and that you can't predict, because most of our lives are what? Unpredictable. So being able to acknowledge where on that spectrum you stand will make calming whatever emotion you're feeling very simple. If you are catching yourself very down, depressed, you're just lacking that optimism, you're probably focused too much on your past experiences and your past mistakes. Now, if you're just overstimulated and you feel like you're overthinking too much, you feel like you don't know what to do next, it's just too many things, you feel like you don't know if you're going to make it, you don't know if you deserve it, all this other type of stuff, you've put yourself in the future. Now, when you put yourself right here, right, when you ground yourself and you put yourself in your own body, you give yourself enough time to think. You give yourself enough time to see, feel, and hear. Crazy, because I'm going to let this plane pass. More chances than not, if you've been blessed with the opportunity to become somewhat present in a meditative state where you're just focusing on the here, now, right now, you can also acknowledge that nothing's actually going wrong. All the things that we're fantasizing about, thinking about, and letting, damage us isn't actually happening right now. Which means our current state, if we was to live in the moment, would be in a very blissful, a very happy, a very freeing state, and having a level of gratitude for that present state, because there's some people who don't have this moment, at the simplest of forms. They don't have this moment. So getting to a point where you can see the beauty and where you stand, the true beauty, not the beauty that's capsulated and formed by the ideals of society, how much money you have, how you dress, how you look, all the beauty standards and all this other type of stuff. That's not the measure I'm talking about. I'm talking about the beauty of where you stand, just in your breath, in your being, all the lessons that you've learned, all the experiences that you've went through, all the twists and turns that led you to right here. In this exact moment, if the things that happened back there if those things didn't happen, you wouldn't be where you are right now. And if it wasn't for your optimism for the future, the trajectory of what you were doing in the past would have been something different. If you go back 3 months ago and you would have set a completely different goal, where you're standing right now would have looked different. You get what I'm saying? This is all this one big, just loop of consciousness. And I think once we start acknowledging those deeper levels of consciousness, spirituality, and mindfulness, it will start curing a lot of this depression. It will start making us a lot more happy and excited almost. This isn't to say that adversities in life and problems and things like that don't happen. There's always going to be something in your way that's kind of like, for my religious people, I hear like the devil knocking at the door. Those type of things are never going to go away. But once you can acknowledge the duality in situations, in every negative there's a positive, in every positive there's a negative, you ground yourself right there in the middle. That middle point is where so much peace is. It's not running from the other side. It's not, making it impossible for you to experience love, heightened emotions, joy, etc., because you feel like you don't deserve it. And it's also not the side where you're so overly stimulated and focused on the future that you're letting life pass you by. It's that middle point. So I don't want to, just keep, just gamming y'all up. I feel like I can go about this type of subject for hours. My condolences to that football player, and my condolences to anybody else who has lost somebody due to mental health. And for the people who are out there dealing with mental health issues, you are not alone. Of course, the world needs you. There's gifts, there's parts inside of you, there's lights, there's creative gifts. There's a lot within you that the world would love to see. And there's 8 billion people, all because the people in your hometown, people at your school, the people wherever the case may be, aren't, appreciating you maybe how you think they should, doesn't mean that there's not billions, hundreds of thousands of other people on this planet who love you for you because they understand you. The moment you take the perspective of, I'm just by myself, I'm, indifferent because I'm dealing with this, you'll be able to find a normalcy in it, which will allow you to grow past it. Once you realize it's kind of a situation and not a circumstance. I don't know if I'm like clicking those two words together right. You don't view it as like a scar. You view it as an external situation. Like, okay, if everybody's going through this, or there's a select group of people going through this, that means that there's a cause behind why we're feeling like this, which also means there's more than likely a solution to get us out of this, because other people have gotten themselves out of it, and other people just simply don't have as severe mental health issues. Being able to put yourself, just humanize it a little bit. Being sad is normal. Being angry is okay. Being confused is like very normal. All of these things is just the natural, flow of human emotions. Doesn't matter how emotional, intelligent you want to get. It doesn't matter what you read, what you listen to. A lot of those things are null and void because you're a human. At some point in time, you're going to experience a wide spectrum of emotions. And just being able to sit with them and not let those emotions be a representation of how you view yourself. Let those emotions be a representation of how you feel about the situation. This situation is making me sad. I need to put myself in a reality or a situation that doesn't make me feel like this. Ask yourself, like, is there a different perspective? Is there anything that I can be viewing this differently as? And if there's an avenue where you can be like, I may not believe it, but this could possibly be true. This could possibly be a reality. Lean on the positive. When you're dealing with severe mental health like that, you have to always lean on the positive. Like, you have to like kick in almost like a certain level of delusion. You have to become delusional. When you're on the brink of not wanting to live, you have to trick your brain into wanting to live. And how do you do that? By feeding it optimism, by feeding it energy, by feeding it the right things. And you start tricking your mind into falling into a certain flow. And once the mind believes it, your habits is going to fall in flow with that version. Your reality is going to fall in flow with that version. A lot of things is going to fall into place. But you have to center that pole on the positive. You just can't sit in that negative. It's gonna hurt. So yeah, with that being said, I love y'all. I love y'all. I love y'all. I'm gonna see y'all in the next video, man. Be safe out here.